Hi everyone, my name is Tegan and welcome back to my desk because today we're talking about the cover design for my book There Will Be Other Summers. And I'm not sure what order I'm uploading the videos because I've already filmed the interior design one. I got to upload it first now. And I didn't have a final copy for that, but for this one, I do. It's more of a penultimate final copy because since this one arriving, there's been some minor changes, but it's pretty much the same, enough that I'm comfortable talking about it and sharing the design process with you. I started working on this early 2023, where the book was not finished, barely even started in fact, because I'm someone who, if I know how the final product is going to look, I'm a lot more motivated to work on it. So I had, 10, 20, I think around 20,000 words of the book written, and I was working on other projects at the time as well. And I thought, hey, if I design the cover for this, I can visualize it as a book, and therefore I can write the book. So that's what I did. And this one's a little different to my previous covers, which I've made full videos for, because this is the first one that I had Procreate for, and this is one that I've illustrated entirely myself as well. But in terms of timeline of events, the first draft, the first literally rough idea for this cover was March 2023. And then sometime after that, I did the sketch for There Will Be Other Summers. I then made the entirety of March and Feather in that time, and then I had come back and did the rest of There Will Be Other Summers. So in the time it took me to make this book, I also did the special edition of Paper Forests in that time. So in the time it took me to make this book, I also made 2 other books. So this sketch, I had a rough idea. I cannot find for the life of me what my reference images would have been for this, but I had this image of 2 people sitting together in a greenhouse. Well, the reference image of them sitting together in my head, it was in a greenhouse. It came to me in a vision. And there was going to be a greenhouse scene in this book. Hadn't written it yet. But in my head I was like, okay, it's got to be a pivotal moment. It doesn't have to be accurate to what the book's going to end up being like. But I knew that the cover had to be these 2 people sitting in the greenhouse. I knew it was going to be a wraparound image. So I kind of sketched the outline of the people onto paper. This is a process that you can't fully see in my time lapses from Procreate, but then I traced it in Procreate, and this was the first thing that I used Procreate for. I was using it largely to learn how to draw enough to do the March and Feather cover. And then after I drew it in Procreate, I would then trace it off my iPad screen onto paper again to make little tweaks, and I'll keep doing that, swapping from paper to Procreate over and over again until I was happy with the outline. I then blocked in some very basic colours, and then as characters, we see here Asher is very warm toned, she is yellow, and Rin is very blue toned, he is blue. Because I had to have the contrast, cool tones, not blue tones. Because I had, here's a contrast, here's some distinct character design. And I'm not a character designer, I'm not an illustrator. I'm literally a photographer who loves dabbling in every medium possible. So I tried my best. And I blocked in basic colours and then started getting experimental. It's okay, here's roughly where the text is going to go. Here's the kind of brushes I want to use. And this is where I discovered my love for the shale brush in Procreate. It's kind of chalky brush. And I wrote the title on it and I thought, there's something to this. And we'll come back to that thought at a later date. So that's where I got to, and that's where my process remained for a while. I then went on and did 2 other books, and I came back to this one. And then I continued to work on it again, and then I started choosing colours more. There's a long time where I thought I wanted the characters to have a white outline around them in that chalk brush, because I knew I found this brush and was I have to incorporate it somehow, but I hadn't quite worked out where yet. And then the next kind of version is where I started using different brushes again, and this is where the cover kind of something was clicking in my mind, something was working. Because I was making all these sketches and I got to a point where I thought, I'm just gonna have to cave and hire a real professional artist. But as this is the book of my heart, is so personal to me, I really wanted to do it myself, no matter how long it took, which is why it took me, 2+ years to do this. But in this version is where I discovered, I believe it's called the wet acrylic brush, and that had this, I used it for, in the final cover, I used it for, you can kind of see in this image, the greenhouse, the floor, the walls, and then I use it for outlining a lot of different things later on. So you can see this kind of streaky texture here, and then the characters are outlined with this brush as well. And a lot of the other small outlines you can't see because it's got a lot of Gaussian blur on it. They're all outlined in that brush because I again like the texture, and the chalky texture of the shell brush was still a bit too much for this moment in time. And then it starts resembling the cover we have today. All the flowers you see on screen, like the bluebells and the tulip, are drawn by my friend Bonnie, and the orchid is a flower that was suggested to me, and I drew that, or like traced it myself. But yeah, a lot of flowers in here. Some of them were contributed by friends, which is very special to me, as it's a book about friendship. And then some of them were just suggestions of flowers. I put the background, I straight up ripped this background of the houses and the trees from March and Feather. I did redraw it, so there are some differences. Some of the houses look a bit different and repositioned. But it was going to be a temporary background for a while, just because I knew there had to be something outside the greenhouse, but I wasn't sure what. And then it became permanent to the point where I redrew it, so it is a different... It looks exactly the same, but it isn't just a copy and pasted element, it is redrawn. And straight across the middle of this cover we have this golden beam of light, which remains in the final one. Why it's right, and I hadn't worked out a placement for it yet, let's just say. And I also had the pink to blue gradient background, because again, the pink and orange gradient background worked for March and Feather, and it added a bit more, visual intrigue than just having it be a plain colour. And also on March and Feather, I like, the front's orange, the back's pink, it's different. And then it just kept adding more plants. And then I had this little reference from my Instagram story where I went in and I kind of like marked out where like significant empty gaps were, where my next plants had to go. And at some point I also changed Rin from being blue to more of a teal, and I added the outlines to the characters in that wet acrylic brush. And here we are still adding more plants. I added a rug because I thought the floor's very bare, but I don't want to add too many plants there. Because I had like a idea for them to like frame the image more, so I added a rug, and that's what really tied it together for me, adding a rug. In like life in general, adding a rug usually works for most things. And then I started adding more and more layers of golden lighting to highlight the characters, add this like summery, warm, bright golden vibe. And around this time I put something on my Instagram story, asking people like, what colour should I make the sky? Because I believe in market research for my closest friends, because I couldn't decide whether it was going to be this pink to blue, or if it was going to be orange to blue, because orange to blue is the colours of the aromantic asexual flag, and this is a book that has a aromantic asexual character. I wanted to tie in that a little bit more, and also the pink just wasn't working for me. I also don't always follow the results of these market research surveys. Sometimes I can't decide, and then people start voting for an answer, and it fills me with such rage they chose that answer. I realised that deep down I knew what I wanted all along. And then I also had a separate poll of should the orange go on the front or the back? Ultimately orange on the back, because orange on the front was too much orange. And then at this point I'd drawn a majority of the plants I needed. I started experimenting more with font choice. And also the background is on, I believe, a 5% Gaussian blur, just to hide the fact that I can't draw. And here, with most of the flowers in place, I was thinking about fonts a lot more. Because the font I used originally was one that I made when I did kind of like a typography idea. Again, even years before I did the sketch, I was like, hey, here's what the font I'm going to use for this book is. Because I'm like that. I pick out the font before writing the book. So the original one that you've seen up until this point is called Salt House, which I still really love and would use for something else. And then the one that you're looking at now is called Adorn. Yeah, Adorn is the font that I used for like the spine and the author name of March and Feather. And I liked it more because it was thicker, it was more substantial to look at on screen. And I really liked it. And I believe it was at this point, I thought I'm going to use Adorn for There Will Be Other Summers. We're maybe in around October now. Like a good 8-9 months have passed. Still made no progress on writing the book. But I was at the point where I was doing like very nitpicky things with the cover. I knew I wanted, a lot of the text to be written in the shale brush. Because it also contributed to this like handmade cozy effect I was going for. I added like little details like the pins on Rin's jacket and Ash's dress it was originally just yellow for me, so I added some orange triangles, and then when I got to writing the book more, I added this little orange triangle into the book. And Asha has an anklet, which is like a pride bead bracelet in the lesbian flag colours, and I added that into the book and little things like that. Yeah, I changed the font, and I thought, okay, I need also the text to interact with the background a bit more. So some of the hanging wisteria wraps around, the bluebell pops in front of a letter, and I really like how that looks. And the only major thing between this and the final cover, it looks like a big jump, is I changed the font again from Adorn Condensed to Kato. And in the poll I put on my Instagram story, the people wanted Adorn. The people did not want Kato, and I overruled them. Because I thought, you know, I'm just going to pop it up just, you know, to get some interaction from my friends, see what they think, and they chose wrong. So I did what I wanted, as always. And then I went over the font in the shell brush to make it chalky, and I added more layers to warm up the colours. And that's how we got up to like this point. This is where the cover was for a while. And then since this, there is now a quote at the top by Cass Bean, who's the author of Vesuvius. We have Emma Seska, who wrote March and Feathers, got a quote down here. And then the text is just, it's left. I don't remember what the word is. It's left line, it's not central. And then the first word of the third paragraph is in yellow as well, just so it all like matches and looks nice together. Okay, so that is like the step-by-step progress of what I did. I think now I need to pop into Procreate and just show you some layers. And then I will show you how it like looks on Photoshop. So yeah, I do all of this in Procreate. I also did it on my old iPad, which had it was a very, very old iPad, which had how much storage? It had like 32 or even 64 gigabyte storage. So I was very limited on how many layers I could have. So the really sad thing for me about opening my Procreate file is that a lot of the layers with the flowers on have been merged together. And every now and then I do want to, and also I think Asher and Rinna's characters are on the same layer, and the beanbag's on the same layer. And there are times where I do want to like move like the sunflower 2 pixels to the left, and I cannot without redrawing the entire thing because of that. Let's hide all the layers. And then yeah, midway through the process, I got a new iPad. So if you scroll back to the start of my layers, there is every single plant on the same layer. And then you get to a point where each individual colour of Rin's pin gets its own layer. Things like that. So while I'm in Procreate, let's just pull up how long this took me to make. There are 4,304 strokes made, and I've been working on it, or had my pen to the iPad, for 19 hours 15 minutes, just in Procreate, not including all the stuff I've done in Photoshop. We have the lovely walls, which is literally just, here are some stripes of brown in the wet acrylic brush. This is literally just me drawing a black circle to add the shadows under things and adding a Gaussian blur so it looks better. Does it show up in the final cover? Kinda, but I know it's there and I like it. And here are pretty much all the flowers in one layer because I literally did not have the storage space. I was maxed out at I think either 15 or 20 layers. And here you can kind of see it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This alone would have been 10 to 15 layers. And here it is with the blur. And it does just look that a little bit nicer, a little bit smoother for me. One of many layers where it is 65% opacity. Where's normal? It is just, here is a beam of light to add more dimension to the cover. In here, this is where Asher and Rin are. So they and their beanbag, it's just added everything at once. They and their beanbag are one layer. That's some pins. And this is where you can tell I got my new iPad and I started going wild for things like that. So we have the glow that goes behind them, which you really cannot see at all. We have the triangles in Ash's dress, and this is layered up because it was just a bit too transparent for me. Same for this swirly. This is to incorporate the shell brush a bit more. But I also liked on March and Feather, first of all, the swirly line that wraps around the front to the back, and then they are connected by like a headphone wire. And as there will be other summers, Asher and Rin connected with music a lot, I wanted a headphone wire for them as well. In the shell brush, it had to be in white because there was so much colour going on. I had no other option than just like tone it down. Here's Ash's phone. There was a moment in time where I was dabbling with giving her a design on her pop socket. She's got a pop socket because I have a pop socket, no other reason. And then I decided not because there was just a lot going on. So she got a ring. Where's it gone? There. She got a ring instead. Here we have some of Rin's pins. That is the aromantic flag, the aromantic asexual flag, and the transgender flag. And these ones are just, he's got a name tag and just some random little things to fill in. Asher originally had one anklet, but it's too dainty, too minimalist, especially compared to everything else on the cover, which is like quite big circles. These are very little circles. So I layered it up, and I still think the circles are kind of too little. And these are the colours from the lesbian flag designed by Emily Gwen. And zooming out a bit more, we have a glow that goes on top of them. Again, just for more very subtle things. And most of the reason why I had to go into Photoshop in the end is because none of my monitors are color calibrated. So when I imported I imported it layer by layer into Photoshop, and it was just like so desaturated, so flat. So I had to go in and like spice it up on a different screen. This plant gets its own layer, but that is the tulip drawn by Bonnie and just another plant drawn by me. Again, just adding in random beams of light in the soft light layer mode. I was really into layer modes for this, because I knew how they worked in Photoshop for adding like texture to my photos. I hadn't quite dabbled in like, this also like changes the color of things behind, and you really notice it. I'm just tapping all over the place. In the wood up here, you can see it's very cool toned in the left, very warm toned on the right. Boy, 50%. And the other one above is just a slightly less warm version, which is more condensed on the characters, where the bottom one is a lot of the image. Oh, that is an old text. I can just fully delete that now. That is the new handwritten text. That is handwritten text with drop shadow, and then I had to go in, erase the drop shadow, and then export this like semi-erased layer, and that's the complete layer underneath. Because in Photoshop, you can't, at least from what I've tried, erase just the drop shadow. Select sections of the wisteria to wrap around the text, and then they all had to get the lighting layers applied directly to them. Most of this text is just for visualizing, but yeah, that's as far as we got in Procreate. Here is the original file for the handwritten text, and it's not even the same text. I must have just did it straight into the document. But that's Procreate. And then we're also not presenting this as a guide of like how to make a cover. The title will be like a guide, a how-to. But this is just a way, like if you're an indie author doing things for free, for doing things yourself, here's how you can do it. You just have to be willing to put a lot of hours into that. Let's go to Photoshop. So here we are in Photoshop. The first layer you can see is the dimensions for the final cover and the page count. For what I was doing in Procreate, I was basing it off the length of paper forests, and the template I used for that, because I knew they're going to be similar in length just because how I write. And then you can kind of see that some edges got to get trimmed off, basically. I was also using cream paper for the Will Be of Summers, so despite the page count being the same or longer, cream paper is thinner than white paper. So this book is a little bit smaller. As we can go down here, if you see all of these layers that are titled Real Paperback Maybe, that's what my Procreate file is called. Because I thought, this might be the real cover for a while, and I just kept the title. And I was going to pursue traditional publication for this book for a bit. I did make an attempt. I think ultimately this book is not fit for the market right now. People does not want a sad YA contemporary in this economy. I returned to my original vision just to put it out myself, and I'm glad I did, because again, as I said, it's the book of my heart. I want to make every decision possible on it. Like, this is going to look exactly how I want it. This is all your Procreate layers. There. And there's little things here where, with Photoshop, I had the freedom to change the text. And also, this is a curve layer. It's just darkening. You can see around the sunflower where this white vase is. It's darkening so you can see the text a bit clearer. I'm seeing if there's anything else of note. There's so many layers. That's the handwritten text. This is the handwritten text. I realised that the title and my name weren't aligned properly. And then again, it wouldn't have been aligned with any other text on the front cover. At some point, I must have had a bevel and emboss effect turned on. Cannot remember why. But it's still there. It's turned off, but it's still there. I'm just literally just showing you the amount of layers here. This has a layer mask on because I used this is just typed rather than written in the shell brush. And that is because I went in with some kind of chalky brush to try and give it the same effect if you zoom in with a drop shadow. And I use a very specific 135-degree drop shadow because in my year 9 IT lessons, that is the angle I chose, and I've been committed to it ever since. It's been 10 years. And I will ride or die with that 135-degree drop shadow. Yeah, the main differences between the Procreate and the Photoshop version is changing the text, slight positions of things, moving things like a millimetre to the left, lining up the text differently, and then adding a slight, this must be the most minimal saturation layer you've ever seen. Oh, it is just plus 20 saturation as a master, to try and mimic how, because without it, it's very, very bland, very saturated, but how I see it on my iPad screen is a lot more colourful like this. That is everything about the outside cover. And then on the inside of the cover, Ingram Spark, which is how I'm printing this book, offers duplex printing, which is where you can offer things on the reverse side of the cover. So this is like a nighttime version of the greenhouse, where it has my author photo in full colour and it's got a little quote from the book. It is just the same elements as the cover, but with, well, I changed the background to be purple. And then it's the exact same elements, but it has minus 50 saturation, minus 50 lightness. Because I wasn't going to redraw this entire thing. I was originally just messing around because I thought, oh, this could be a fun idea for the duplex. I wasn't set on it. So it's a very tentative, a very big maybe. And I did it and I just stuck with it because I like it. Because again, there is a scene there's multiple scenes in this greenhouse. Some of them are during the day, some are at night. And this was just very special. It's just, there will be other some as light soft mode, nighttime mode. And then the colour for the inside is this like soft, powdery, I really love this shade of blue. But rather than the yellow, it is blue. Because in my heart, this book is both yellow and blue. And then when you are submitting these files to Ingram Spark, they give you a template to download and just input your cover onto. Why is there an AI assistant for my PDF? And then I literally just flattened the image, made it into CMYK rather than RGB, and copy and paste it onto here. And then I did open it gives you a page for the front cover and for the duplex cover. I opened each PDF in Photoshop and then had to use like ilovepdf.com to merge them back into one file again. But that's what the file you submit is, and it has these little like hairline lines, so the computer knows how to crop it for you. And I'm going to head back over here, and I just want to show you like the few little Easter eggs that are in this cover for me. I'm going to remove all the text. Some of the text. Where's the rest of the text? Oh, that's the text that has a drop shadow, and this drop shadow came in. So little Easter eggs. First of all, obviously the flowers that were drawn by my friend. So the bluebells were drawn by hand, this kind of rosy thing, the tulip. And the tulip's used twice, but the tulip's drawn by Bonnie. In this little vase here, you can't tell because of the Gaussian blur. We have the birth flowers for January, February, August and November and July. So there's one flower representing each key friend who inspired this book. We have a lot of these, some of the flowers, specifically this look like baby hydrangea, are mentioned in the book. A lot of them aren't. But the main key Easter eggs are here. You have Ash's lesbian pride bracelet. You have Rin's pride pins. And for the ebook cover of this book, it is literally the exact same, just without the pins. Because I wanted that to almost be like a discreet ebook in case your homophobic parents stumbled across your Kindle, things like that. And obviously the background, which is taken from March and February. So I wanted to connect these books. Like, they're both in real world settings, so in theory they could be in the same universe, but they're connected. They're siblings in my heart, because like, look how good they are. They look together. Right here. There. They're siblings. And yeah, there's a lot of little details like the triangles on the skirt that I added in the cover and then went back to add into the book. So it all ties together. But I don't think there's a scene where Asher like wears this outfit in the greenhouse. This jacket Rin wears, I'm again pretty sure he never wears. It's mentioned like lying on his bed at the start of a chapter and he can feel the pins. But it's not actually, like, I don't think he actually wears it. So it's just tying together like a lot of little things that I like. And it's a good thing I'm about to finish filming because there's a giant fly in here doing my head in. So yeah, thank you so much for watching the video. At time of recording, this book's not out. It's still the start of August, which is why I don't have a final copy of the book. But by the time this is out, this book would have been out for a month or two. I hope it's being received warmly and people love it at least half as much as I do, because this is my child. But no matter how people feel about it, it's so fond, it's so special to me. And like, this is my beautiful baby boy. So I've done the cover design video, I've done the video about the interior design. If there's anything else about, the technical aspects of making a book aimed, more at indie authors or people who are nosy about it, please let me know, because I would love to yap about this book forever. If there's anything I can help you with, hit me up. But yeah, for now, thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!